approved, and call this meeting into order at
Printed.
a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We, 2-0, does that mean? Oh, no.
Mhm.
2-0, so, have anyone had the opportunity to review the, minutes from last, policy committee meeting?
Yes, I've had opportunity to review the minutes and they look perfectly fine to me.
All right, seeking a motion.
I move that we adopt the minutes from November 12th, 2019.
All right, second. And,
Aye.
aye. That's 2-0, and, so we, motion is approved. Moving on to discussion items, 4.1, the second reading of the 2020 CSDG-KC legislative platform. Open for discussion. Or has committee members been able to review this memo?
So if, just as a reminder for the committee, when I presented the 2020 legislative platform to the board November 14th, if you can recall, these were the items that the consolidated school group, the consolidated administrators approved and worked on with Steve Carroll as well as Dr. Kenny Southwick. And we have in the past worked with the Nexus group to develop our legislative platform, but we are not working with the Nexus group this school year, and so wanting the board to adopt the legislative platform that has been approved by the cooperating school groups of superintendents, so that we will have legislative priorities that we can publish on our website, as well as if any of us travel to Jefferson City or engage in legislators in terms of what we're supporting and what we're opposing, we have the talking points and the language to do so.
Okay. So, committee members, have you been able to review this and make sure, and the changes made by Ms. State?
Oh, yes, I've had the opportunity to review this publication for filing.
Okay. So, seeking a motion for, I guess, the approval for filing.
Yeah, I move that we accept the changes made, the correct changes made to the publication of filing dates for the board. Pardon?
My explanation was on the next item.
But you're good.
Thank you.
No, I saw where you were going. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2-0. Moving to 4.2, which is our 2020 election public filing notice language, in which Dr. Cargill has already kind of laid the foundation for what needs to be discussed. Is there any further discussion with this item? All right. Well.
I'm on the right track. Okay. My explanation was right for 4.1, the legislative platform.
Yeah.
I'm on track. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, I don't know. I mean, it seems like
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah. As far as the language is concerned, is there any discussion regarding the filing notice language, or no? All right. I don't know if we have to vote on that, if we've already approved the platform itself. Carla, do we have to vote on that?
You all approved it as directors at the last
Right.
meeting, correct?
Yeah.
So that would
Okay. So, all right, moving on. 4.3. It's gonna be a quick meeting. So, 4.3 covers our last discussion regarding the changes in which or the MSBA's changes to policies that you had kind of presented to us at the last meeting. Any committee members been able to review or make any changes that?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to review them. There was just 3 of them that just want some clarity on. The opioid one with the storing of that, and is in the best interest of the district to take the superintendent's recommendation not to store that. Those
As I recall, Dr. Pergall, that was your recommendation.
Yeah,
That-
'cause we had, we could determine whether we wanted to, oh, absolutely, yeah. I would hate for anything to happen and,
Okay, so your
yeah.
recommendation was to
Not
not,
to store them.
not to store the,
Mhm.
what's that, naloxone?
Naloxone, which is the countermeasure for opioid overdose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So we would not be,
Which letter is that?
that's EBBA. Administrative Procedure 1. So we would not be taking the recommendation of MSBA.
Correct.
Okay.
I thought we were seeing, did we find out what the other districts were doing for that one? Cause that was the one we discussed, like, what were the benefits and,
No, that was
Then it's-
The
JHCD.
marijuana one,
Um,
CBD, whatever you call
The
it.
CBD oil one. I guess the
yeah, we
only
could just call 911, but,
I think that would be appropriate. I mean, just not having having a school nurse or anyone responsible for administrating
Mhm.
it's serious.
it's a heavy liability issue. I mean, what are your thoughts? Like,
So I mean, I think it's, it depends upon whether or not, you feel like the benefit of having it would outweigh, the liability. I mean, it's a drug that's designed to reverse the effects of opioid overdose. As I understood it, that wasn't,
Not a
an
crisis.
issue, a crisis issue
Any
within this
district.
district.
Mhm.
right?
And so if it's not, then it's not, and there's nothing that says that we have to accept that.
Because had we had an issue where we had an opioid overdose, or within the last, I would even say 3 years,
Mhm.
then I would say, okay, having it on hand here, if it was a reoccurring issue, which we have, but we have not had that issue, as far as I'm concerned, so I agree.
Yeah.
That Zoom isn't on, I don't see any dots. It's Clifford there.
He hasn't joined. I started the meeting.
Yeah.
Clifford, you need to join the meeting. I mean,
I never got it. I was looking for it. I never got
Okay,
it.
so let's.
I sent it to your Hickman Mills email address.
All right, let me try it again and I'll call back.
Okay.
you only have
Cause
20%.
if it wasn't going, it would say stop video and I had the option to end the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go with that recommendation. Okay.
So that recommendation is to not accept, and that policy is the,
EBBA, Administrative Procedure 1.
okay. So, it's to not accept.
Mm-hmm. So it would not be added to the list of emergency medications that are, stocked by the district.
All right.
Alright, and you said you had two
I
other
have
votes?
another one. The marijuana and CBD, have we, how are other districts responding to the MSBA changes and recommendations, the superintendent's recommendation? I don't,
I don't think you got it.
we,
You know, I sent what correspondence I had to legal
Mhm.
counsel in terms of discussion points, but I did not have a recommendation I was relying.
yeah, and I don't have, and personally, I don't know if I have enough enough information, on this policy.
So I've only received, revisions from one district on it, and I have not gotten any indication from, MSBA that other districts have approved it as printed at this point. So, what I'm thinking, what that tells me is it seems to be under review.
Still revision.
Mhm.
By other districts. And so what I would recommend is that we wait and see what other districts are doing with this one before we do that. And I can circulate the revisions that I got from the one district, so that you all can start looking at that. But I think we should wait and see what our counterpoints are doing.
I just think with the changes that are being made on a state level and just, and And on a local level, I think that at the end of the day, this needs to be vetted a little bit more. I don't have enough information on that one.
So can we table this topic until we get feedback from,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay.
Attorney Phil Johnson, but the remainder of the policies, if we don't pull any more off, will be on the December agenda for approval. Is that a second reading or a first reading?
First reading.
First
of the
reading,
board.
okay.
First reading.
So we pull these off of the document that's going to be uploaded?
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right, and I only have the one more policy,
Mhm.
and that is the restraint.
Mhm.
I know that MSBA is not requiring that of any districts. So what is our stance gonna be on that?
So,
No, they only remove
Yeah.
the training requirement, but we
Training.
are required
The
to
training
document whenever a student is secluded from the regular class, isolated, or physically restrained. We have to track that information.
So the training, so as
So-
far as the training is concerned.
the training is,
But we offer MET training for our staff.
and the training is documented as far as like from the last meeting that we had, I think we had established that we have a MANT trainer. The MANT trainer, keeps a log of expiration dates as well as those who've received those trainings. And, the district also knows who is trained within the
Absolutely,
district.
yeah.
So, essentially, we wouldn't we can comply with this in the sense that the MANT certification lasts for what, 2 years? So,
Mhm.
It's yearly.
annual.
It's an annual training. There's a 2-day for the first one, and the second one is every other year after that is a 1-day, but it's yearly.
Okay,
Mm,
so,
that was good, but thank you.
yeah, so we are making sure that I understand that this is policy, what the policy is saying, that there's no mandatory training for an annual.
Correct, it's removing the requirement that that employees, district personnel be trained annually on the policy. And instead, allowing the district personnel be informed of the policy. So it removes the requirement of,
For annual training.
mhm.
Now, if it had been 2-year training that lasted for 2 years, then that would be, this policy would make no difference. But if it's an annual training where you do a 2-day training for the initial training, and then every year after that you do a one day training, then, this policy would, I can't,
Well, this is just the overview of one sentence of the policy. They're giving you the updates in terms of what has happened. We're still required to make sure we're tracking when and how a student is secluded, restrained, any of that. We have to do that, and we develop documents already within the district that documents that process, and there's even a debrief included with that. So this sheet is just the overview of what has changed,
right,
but it's more inclusive of the information than what we see here.
okay.
So the change is, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why they're not requiring training.
So are we, as a district,
Do we,
we need to go ahead and require the training since we document
It's a
the
must,
training so
yeah.
that it is to be integrated into our policy, what I'm hearing.
so then, regardless of their update and overview, we're gonna continue to do this, so do we need to?
Add it to our policy to make sure that we.
No.
So, I mean, you have 2 options. You can either, not accept this portion of the revision, and so if that were the case, then the district by policy would be required to train annually, and make sure that employees are informed of the policies, and procedures involved in using seclusion, isolation, or restraint. And then, the policy dictates, what the training should include. And so if you reject this revision, then it would stay as it was, which is a requirement for annual training, and it dictates what the training is. That's option 1. Option 2 would be, to accept the change on the policy, but there's nothing that says that as a district, we can't still train annually. I mean, this would say that we're not required to do it, but, you know, there's nothing that says, from a policy perspective, that says that you can't do something more than what you're required to do. So, do you understand that?
Yeah, I do, and I think my concern is that, like, with option one seems a little bit more secure for us in the sense of, once again, liability, and also ensuring that when we do have a lot of issues that require restraint or seclusion, and I think that it would just be best if we even as a district ensure that our employees are.
Mhm.
So I would go with option one. Option one. So what I would like to seek is a motion to approve these with the corrections in which or the corrections we made. If anyone has any other discussion, I know, Vice President Reagan, I know you're there. I wanna, if you would like some input or to give any input, please do so.
Well, I'm glad you said option one because if I remember, it does serve me right. We did have a teacher that we did basically didn't do, I guess, the correct training that he was supposed to do, if you guys recall. So by this happening, I think it would be good. Therefore, this keeps everybody, as you stated, a liability, and it also keeps them to know what the do's and don'ts when restraining a student. So that's all I have to say on that.
Okay. So the chair is seeking a motion for the approval of these revisions. Well, actually, this overview with the revisions decided on by this committee.
Mm-hmm. I move that we accept the revisions of the stated policies, which one, by this committee.
So, to clarify her motion, which policies by number are we? Because I want to make sure that it's in the motion that which policies more specifically are we taking out?
So, as I've got it, you're removing EBBA, Administrative Procedure 1. JHCD is being pulled, and then JGGA is being pulled. So, your motion is to approve all the policies on the MSBA 2019B policy update overview with the exception of JGGA, JHCD, and EBBA Administrative Procedure 1.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. Is there a second?
A second.
I have a clarifying, so
you
with
made
JG, none of it is going to be on there, or we're just going to edit and modify and remove the annual training? Like, we still need the policy in place,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Option one revision.
The policy will stay in place. This was an addition
Okay.
to that policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're not accepting the revisions to the
Gotcha.
policy,
Alright.
to those particular policies.
And you made the motion, so
Mm-hmm.
is there a second? Mr. Reagan?
Mr. Reagan?
Mr. Reagan? I'll second. But he's gonna have to vote.
It still carries.
Okay, so, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those,
Yep, you've got a 2 to 0.
2-0, and we'll go from there. Next item on the list is 5.1 future items from the Board of Education. I don't think we have any.
I don't think we have any at this point.
So, moving on to 6.1, or 6.0, future meeting dates. Policy Committee meeting will meet January 7th at 2020 at 5:30 p.m. Our regular session board meeting is December 19th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. If anyone doesn't have any other comments,
So at this point, you're asking me to ask Ms. Payton to have these presented to the board, cause they're gonna be on
Absolutely.
the agenda in December for first read.
absolutely. Any other questions, comments, quandaries, keywords?
No, that's all I have.
The time is 5:56, and I would like to congratulate everyone on the first adjournment within 30 minutes.